Wow. I don't even know what the hell to say about that game right there. But the Las Vegas Raiders, man. Uh, wow. I don't know what to say, man. 63 points by the Las Vegas Raiders. That is insane, if you guys ask me. Coming into this game, I swore the score would have been like 10-7. The Raiders would have either scored 10 or they would have scored 7, but I didn't think this team was going to come out and drop 63 points. And 42 of those came in the first half. Let's just be honest. The Raiders kind of let up a little bit towards the end of the game, which makes sense, right? Let's just be honest. That 100% makes sense. Um, 63 points. That's crazy to me, man. Let's talk about this game a little bit. We're going to get into some of your guys' questions and comments and those type of things. Shout out to you, Jake, for becoming a member of the channel. Um, just a crazy game all around, man. I don't know. I don't even know what to kind of say, but Coach AP definitely wants to be the Raiders coach as we go forward, and the way to do that is to win these games, win the rest of these games coming up. It's not easy winning games in the NFL. A lot of us have stated, as we kind of go forward, the Raiders need to really evaluate who's here for the future and who's not. Zamir White had his opportunity today to show up and have success and, show that he's the long-term backup or the long-term guy behind Josh Jacobs. He came in today, he had 17 carries. He had 69 yards. Not great, but it's not terrible, right? 4.1 yards per attempt. Not terrible. Guys like Aiden O'Connell. Guys like, Jermaine Illuminor. Guys like Tyree Wilson and Malcolm Coons. We want to see what these guys have as we kind of go forward. And these guys stepped up. 63 points. And two of those touchdowns, so those 63, came on the defensive side. John Jenkins had the fumble recovery in which Malcolm Coons forced the fumble. Jack Jones had a beautiful one-handed interception. And to me, this was one of those games, man. This kind of reminds me of the ass kicking we gave the Denver Broncos years back. I know some of you guys remember that game. And I don't know if we've had another game like this where we put up this many points. The game was pretty much over in the first quarter. We were up 21-0. I think we had the ball starting the second quarter, and we scored once again. We're already up 28-0, within the first 18 minutes of the game. This game was absolutely insane. Shout out to all you guys that are here. You guys know I don't go live that often, but I had to go live after this video, man. I really want to know what you guys think. Obviously, the Raiders, season hasn't went exactly how we wanted it to. Honestly, since the last time I went live, it had to have been at least like 6 to 7 weeks ago at this point. But our season has not went the way we wanted it to be, right? We're in a much different place at this point. I think a lot of us can agree we're more so looking to the draft and kind of figuring out who the quarterback is. Is it Aiden O'Connell? Is it someone else? Finding out, is it AP? Is it someone else? I think at this point, we're really looking forward to that. And we're not that far off. Beating an NFL team 63-21, that doesn't happen that often, right? But this team was motivated. So to me, great job by the Las Vegas Raiders. Shout out to every single one of those guys. Aiden O'Connell had a really clean game, 20 of 34, 248 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers threw 2 passes for 12 yards. And, of course, he hit Devontae Adams for a touchdown. This one's going to be interesting. Joe Nation says, please tell Mark Davis to leave Patrick Graham alone. It's going to be interesting. I'm telling you guys, I saw some people talk about Patrick Graham possibly becoming a head coach. I don't know if that's going to happen this hiring cycle. But if Patrick Graham is here with the Raiders next season and we're, continue to be this defense that we've been this season, he'll definitely have a shot, right, the season after or maybe 2 seasons after. So Patrick Graham, man, you got to give him credit as well. So many forced fumbles for the Raiders, points per game. Everything's been phenomenal for the Raiders on the defensive side. He's getting guys to really step up and play. And you also got to give credit to guys like Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce. Jack Jones was not here when week 1 came around. Jack Jones just got picked up a couple weeks back, and the guy has been pretty damn solid. He's not Nnamdi Asomugha, he's not Darrelle Revis, but the guy's been a pretty solid football player. And he had a pick 6 today, which was beautiful. One-handed, timed it. You You can tell the guy watches tape because he read the play and he knew exactly what was coming. He jumps it. To me, it was a really, really nice play by Jack Jones. Shout out to you, Richard. You said, bro, I'm surprised. I told my wife, look at the score. She told me, what the F? LOL, bro. Our reaction was crazy. We couldn't believe it. I hear you, man. That's exactly how I felt. Like, when we're up like 42-0, I kept telling myself, is this really happening? Are the Raiders really beating the shit out of the Los Angeles Chargers? But I love it, man. I love it. I'll take the win. I know some people are going to talk about the draft and how we're going to drop a little bit. We definitely are, but do keep in mind, every team plays still, right? It's not only the Raiders that if we win, we're going to continue to go down. There's a chance that some of the other teams that are playing as well over the next, 3 to 4 weeks, there's a chance that they also continue to win. So the Raiders draft will fluctuate a little bit, but I think at the end of the day for the Raiders, if you want the number 1 overall pick, it's going to be there, right? The Chicago Bears aren't drafting a quarterback. I know a lot of people may not agree with that, but at 5-8, the Bears have a pretty easy schedule for the rest of the season. They're right there. They can make the playoffs still, right? So if the Bears make the playoffs with Justin Fields over these next couple of games, they're going to roll forward with him. They're not going to just replace him with Caleb Williams. So we'll see what actually ends up happening. Again, if the Raiders want that first overall pick, they can trade up for it, right? It's going to be there. I understand how some people are going to say this impacts us in terms of the draft. We're going to drop down a little bit. We'll see, man. We'll see. It's definitely, I don't know. I understand what people are saying, but 63 points, man, that's going to fire some people up. Shout out to you, Tito. You said went from 1% to 2% to make the playoffs. That is fact, right? That is definitely fact. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. Untouchable Raider, shout out to you, Sid. Went to B-dubs tonight. Chargers are tanking and done with Staley. As for us, just Sid, let's beat some ass. I still don't think AP and AOC is our future. I agree with you. I'm not going to lie, right? I love the fact that the Raiders came together. They had a fantastic game. They won this game. I still don't think Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback for the Raiders. Not saying that I'm 100% out on him. Honestly, the Commanders did this with Sam Howell last season. And I believe it might have been the Jags that did this as well with Gardner Minshew. They had these young rookie quarterbacks that showed a little bit of promise. And the following season, they went forward with these guys. Right? Sam Howell had his opportunity this season. And Gardner Minshew had his season as well, the one season he had. Maybe the Raiders do roll forward with Aiden O'Connell. We'll see what they ultimately choose to do. I wouldn't mind if they went with Aiden O'Connell, but they would have to hit on the draft pick, right? If we take the equivalence of, Alex Leatherwood in the first round coming up here, or, the Tyree Wilson over Jalen Carter in the first round here. And Tyree Wilson's been playing a lot better. But if we're not going to take a quarterback in the first round, we have to hit on our pick, right? So I think it's a massive part of how the Raiders move forward and ultimately decide. I'm personally not 100% sold on Aiden O'Connell. Obviously, I do acknowledge that rookie quarterbacks do get better with time. Plus, we don't really know what type of offensive coach Bo Hardegree is. Although today things looked very, very good, right? Like, I can't wait to go back and actually watch the tape tomorrow. Usually, I haven't been able to say that over the past couple of weeks, but this game for sure. I'm going to be excited to go check the tape out. A Red Pill Poker said, can we still make the playoffs? I'm not 100% sure. We're 6-8 at this point. I guess technically you probably could, but I think it's a long shot, right? I think a lot of other teams would have to lose. And there's 3 games left, so you'd have to win all 3. You'd have to finish 9-8 at the worst, and even then, I think it's kind of a long shot. But I don't know. I guess technically we probably could. Javier said, who do you think we should draft? That's an interesting question. I haven't done my offensive line, preview or whatever, like the actual scouting of the offensive linemen. There are some guys that I've seen that I know of. Obviously, you got the Penn State left tackle, you got the Notre Dame tackle. There's a couple of good guard prospects, center prospects. In terms of who I think, I haven't watched the quarterbacks in terms of the actual tape and really analyze them and do all that stuff. But I think the sexy pick is to take the quarterback, but I don't know, right? Like, what if like only Drake May ends up being the good quarterback and all the other guys suck and we take one of those other guys, right? Or what if we trade up and Caleb Williams isn't that good, right? So it's hard to say who we should draft. I like the Illinois defensive tackle. I think that guy is an absolute stud. There's a couple other guys. There's like two really good wide receivers. You got the LSU guy, you got the Ohio State guy. Um, and there's a couple good corners. It really just depends how the Raiders want to kind of go forward. I do think it's important that the Raiders draft the center in the draft this season. Um, I forget the guy's name, but I think his first name Cedric from Georgia. He's the number one center coming out this year. He'll be there in the second round. I think the Raiders should target him. I think Dylan Parham is probably better at this point than Andre James, but I'm still not sure if that's good enough. Right? I watched Dylan Parham's tape at center over the past game. He didn't look all that great to me. Like, he looked okay, but it wasn't anything special. And I think for the Raiders, you got to make sure you have a center that can be consistent. He's snapping the ball consistently. He's moving people consistently. He's anchoring down in the middle of the offensive line, which we've seen Andre James struggle with. To me, I'm taking a center at least center in the second round, right? Because those are the guys that are going to end up being, the top tier centers. You look around the league right now, you got like Creed Humphrey, who's probably the second or third best center in the NFL. He's a second round pick. Cam Jurgens is going to be a phenomenal center for the Eagles. He was a second round pick, right? He's actually the starting right guard at the moment. Just thinking, the Giants got a center in the second round this past year. The Jets got a center as well. I think their center was a little bit later though, but the Raiders got to get a center. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. I appreciate the super chat as always. Great tribulation said, this hunger, this intensity, this release relentlessness, and we have a dynasty. I love that, man. I really, really do. Earlier today, I made a video and I talked a little bit about the Raiders and kind of how they should focus in this game. There were a couple of things I wanted to see, and I know we talked about the possibly tanking and those type of things. I do, and I also stated this. I said, I don't know how much winning is going to matter at this point because we don't know if Antonio Pierce is the coach, and we don't know if Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback. But I do think that scoring 63 points and doing what the Raiders did against the Chargers, I think that's a pivotal thing to do, right? I think that right there is a mindset to have that, hey, we blew this team out. And I know Justin Herbert wasn't starting, but we only had one interception on the quarterback. All the other turnovers were basically fumbles, right? We're stripping some of the guys that would catch the ball or run the ball or whatever. There was a punt return, I think, that we stripped on another one. Those plays to me, those being able to do those type of things, we would have done that regardless of who the quarterback was. And I think regardless of who the quarterback was this game, I think the Raiders would still have probably beaten the shit out of this team, right? So I'm excited for what the Raiders showed today. I think if they can continue to build on this as they continue to go forward, make the playoffs or not, as many games as we can win as we go into next season, I think as long as the Raiders can figure out who the offensive coach is and who the quarterback is, I think the Raiders are going to have a real shot next season to make the playoffs. Having at the moment we're about 11th, I believe, in points per game on the defensive side. That's crazy to think with the investments that we have on that side. The offense has underperformed. Everybody knows that. But a part of that is because we have had inconsistency at quarterback. If we fix that quarterback position next season, there's no reason why the Raiders can't make the playoffs, right? And, of course, it does start with winning these type of games, right? Showing that you can beat teams like the Chargers. The Chargers have a great offensive line. I know the left tackle there, Rashawn Slater, has had his struggles, right? I think he tore his ACL last year, so maybe he's still recovering a little bit from that. He hasn't looked the same. Malcolm Kuhn's pretty much whooped his ass. But their right tackle, Trey Pipkins, is pretty solid right tackle. Jamari Salyers, their starting right guard. Their center, I think, had like a heart issue or something, and he's been out for most of the season. Their left guard is a first-round pick just last season. The offensive line that the Chargers have is solid, and the Raiders beat the crap out of them. And a part of that was that adjustment, right? Like putting Tyree Wilson at the 3 technique. Those type of things matter, right? So I'm excited for the Raiders as we move forward. A shout out to you, Greg, for the super chat. You said, do we shift the draft to focus on O-line, D-line now and roll with O'Connell? If he's protected, he can execute. That's, I'm going to be honest, you guys. I can give you guys my opinion on Aiden O'Connell of what I see, what I think. It's not, my opinion's not any more important than anyone else's opinion. I don't analyze quarterbacks. I never studied quarterbacks. I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time when it comes to the real fine-tuned details. There's guys like the quarterback school who's a former NFL quarterback that can probably tell you guys a lot more about the quarterback play. I don't know if the Raiders should roll forward to Aiden O'Connell. One thing that I feel like I've seen from certain quarterbacks around the NFL, you look at like the top 7 quarterbacks, is they're all fast, they're all quick, they can all run away from guys when they get pressured, they can all extend plays, and I feel like Aiden O'Connell doesn't have that ability, and I don't know how important that ability actually is for a quarterback to have success. I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, you have Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and these pocket passing quarterbacks," and that is true. But I think Tom Brady in his prime was probably a lot faster than Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell looks slow. Keep in mind, he's a rookie, right? This is the fastest he'll ever be. He's only going to get slower and slower and slower. So I'm not 100% sure. Maybe if the Raiders do fix the offensive line and we do give Aiden O'Connell the time, if we do give Aiden O'Connell the opportunity to sit back there and continuously have 3.5 seconds to throw the ball, maybe he does have success, right? I don't know, right? But I do think that the Raiders do have to focus on the offensive line and they do have to focus on the defensive line. It sucks because had we taken Jalen Carter, I think our defensive line would have been like one other defensive end away from being like a top 5 defensive line. Jalen Carter is a superstar. Max Crosby's a superstar. You'd have 2 guys already right there. I think Malcolm Kuntz is developing into something special as well. I mean, you guys look at what Malcolm Kuntz did to Rashawn Slater today. Even last week against Christian Darrisaw, he kicked Christian Darrisaw's ass a little bit. There are NFL scouts that I talk to, guys that do only offensive line content. They do offensive line film breakdowns. They only talk O-line. They think Rashawn Slater and Christian Darrisaw are like top 7 left tackles in the NFL, and Malcolm Kuntz beat the crap out of both of those guys the past 2 weeks. Maybe Malcolm Kuntz, is the real deal and he develops into something. I think it's going to be interesting as we kind of go forward. Now, I do think the Raiders still need to get a defensive tackle, and we got to really fix the offense line. I think our offense line is bad, and I know they've shown that they can have success in certain situations, but I think sometimes what ends up happening, and this is my opinion, I may be wrong here, but I think sometimes what ends up happening is you can have 5 offensive linemen, and then from there you can have 5 guys kind of running out, right, to run routes. I think sometimes what happens is instead of having 5 guys run out, the Raiders will keep a tight end in to block and to chip. They'll have a running back on the other side to block and to chip. And then we really only have 3 guys going out. And one of those routes of the 3 guys may be like a check down or maybe like an influence routes. We really only have 2 guys that are running actual routes the quarterback can throw to, and then he'll have the 2 check downs. There's offensive lines out there. I'll give you guys an example. The Eagles is a team that I watch every single week. The Cowboys, I watch them every single week. You guys know I have a second YouTube channel where I do just offensive line content. One of the things I noticed with those teams compared to the Raiders is those teams do 5-man protection, true 5-man protections, where it's left tackle to right tackle, 5-on-4. Sometimes if a linebacker comes, it'll be 5-on-5. And those guys give their quarterback the time. So that quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes, he'll have 5 guys truly running routes or 5 guys involved in the play. The Raiders don't do that as much, right? So again, I know, you can say the quarterback's not getting sacked, so the Raiders have a great offensive line. Do keep in mind, you can scheme things up. You can scheme up protection and those type of things. Tua Tagovailoa, right? He has the most time in the pocket. He's almost never sacked, and a part of that is because he gets the ball out so quickly. I think the Raiders' offensive line is not that good. I truly think that. So I think we need to fix the offensive line. I'd start with the right tackle position. I'd get a true guy that can really anchor down and be the long-term tackle. You could probably trade up into the later first round, the way the Jags took is it Anton Harrison, I think, this past draft class. He's gonna be a good tackle. The Steelers took Broderick Jones. He's going to be a good tackle as well. There's probably like 4 to 5 first round tackles in this class. Now you could probably with like the 8th overall pick take one of the top 2 tackles, and I'd be okay with that as well, right? So, I can talk O-line, D-line all day, by the way. And I know some of you guys probably think I talk too much O-line, D-line, but shout out to you guys for the super chats. Tito says, I just hope this game doesn't mess up our future. We need Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams and Jim Harbaugh or Gruden. The coach, not the general manager, will be okay. I actually tweeted that earlier. I think John Gruden as an actual coach is a good coach. I think as a play caller, he's a pretty good play caller. But as a general manager, he is bad, man. They put that they put that graphic up in the middle of the game where it talked about our first round picks since I believe 2016, which I believe was Carl Joseph, and then I think the year after was Garyon Conley, or may have been the other way. I think Carl Joseph was first, and it just went on like Damon Arnett, Henry Ruggs, who else have we taken? Cleveland Farrell, Jonathan Abram, just player after player after player, just wasted picks. That's the recipe to not have success. That's the recipe of never being good. If the Raiders want to be good, they have to hit on their draft picks. Rather it's Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, and we get one of these quarterbacks, or if it's Jim Harbaugh, I'm all for that as well. Even if it's Antonio Pierce, I think Antonio Pierce as an actual head coach is not a bad head coach. I think he's a good head coach. I just think the biggest issue for the Raiders will always be, will we be able to retain an offensive coach to basically run this offense? I don't think we'll be able to, right? I think Antonio Pierce could be a good coach, but then we'll always have this constant change at the offensive coordinator position. Of course, it has that recipe has worked. Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin have had success working with that recipe. John Harbaugh, none of those guys call plays at all, right? So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for sure. I appreciate the super chat as always. There's a lot of really good comments. Cam says JC Latham is insane too, or Latham I think is how you say it's the tackle for Alabama. Robert says Sanjit is high, talking about the lines. I can talk O line, D line forever. I no lie, I think it's one of my passions. If you guys follow my content, I don't lie to you guys, man. I try being 100% honest with you guys. I'll be on, I don't analyze corners or quarterbacks or receivers or safeties. Like I can't tell you guys the little details about those positions. But if you guys ask me about offensive linemen, I'll tell you what a jump reach is. I'll tell you guys about outside zone, inside zone. I'll explain you guys the differences. I can talk about O line, D line all day. I appreciate the comment, Robert. I'm definitely not high though. I can guarantee you guys that. I appreciate the comment as always. Spacer says, do you think Dalton Wagner could be the right tackle next season? I'm 100% giving Dalton Wagner the opportunity to be the right tackle. I do think, I don't know where his development is, and I think because he was placed on injured reserve, I don't think he can technically have practice. So I don't think he actually practiced this season. I could be wrong on that, but because he was actually, placed on the injured reserve, I don't think he could have actually put pads on and those type of things. But I would like to see where his development is, right? Dalton Wagner had some, he showed some physicality in training camp. He showed that he definitely, from a mental aspect, wanted to play and kind of hit people. But will that actually translate? And I think that's the big thing. Will Dalton Wagner actually translate? I think he can. He looked pretty good. He was definitely raw coming out of, I think it was Arkansas. I'm pretty sure it was Arkansas. Coming out of Arkansas, he's pretty raw. I remember watching his tape against Will Anderson, and he flashed. Both him and the center, Ricky Stromberg, who also was from Arkansas. I believe he went to the Commanders. Both of those guys look good, and they actually had pretty good games against Alabama. And Bama obviously had like Byron Young, the guy that the Raiders took. They had Will Anderson, and I felt like he was pretty damn good, right? But we'll have to see if he actually develops. I think from an upside perspective, the one thing with Dalton Wagner is he may not be as athletic. And I think as an offensive tackle, you have to be athletic, right? I think that's the one difference between the top tier offensive tackles and just kind of the average guys is the athleticism. Trent Brown was more athletic. If, Darren Munford was more athletic, these guys would be really, really, really good tackles, but they're just not athletic. They just don't move well. And I think with Dalton Wagner, that could be an issue. Don't quote me on that, but I would definitely give Dalton Wagner the opportunity for sure. Rashawn Shade said that graphic was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I was enjoying this game. The Raiders were smacking the shit out of the Los Angeles Chargers. And then, bam, they put up this graphic of all these blown first-round picks. And I thought, what the hell? Why are they putting this up? That was definitely embarrassing. Black Seal Sports Talk, shout out to you, said AP is the real deal leader. And shout out to Bo. We've been hard on him, but amazing play calling today. Wow, this feels great. I agree, 100% feels great. I actually saw, and I don't know if there was I don't know if there was actually, if the broadcast crew, someone pointed it out, or if they even zoomed in on Bo Hardrick at any point. I didn't see it, but I saw online on Twitter that Bo Hardrick was actually in the box today, which I think would technically be his first time in the box. And he put up 63 points coming, going from the field into the box. So I don't know what it is, but I think with Patrick Graham, the same thing kind of happened, right? When the defense started playing better, it was told that, hey, he was up in the box. So maybe, being in the box does make a difference, right? I don't know, but I do like the fact that Bo Hardrick had a great game today. He definitely deserves a lot of credit. Maybe Bo Hardrick is our offense coordinator next year, right? I know some people are going to say he's not that good of a coach, but from a play calling perspective, designs, and those type of things, I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's, I think he's better than Josh McDaniels from play calling perspective. And we do got to keep in mind, Bo Hardrick does have a rookie quarterback, so it's going to make a difference. Plus, he didn't really have an off season to design his own offense, so don't be surprised if the coaching staff we have right now is literally the same coaching staff going into next season with the same general manager. Like, we're all excited about Jim Harbaugh and Bob Slowick and all these other guys. Don't be surprised if we end up just keeping, AP, Patrick Graham and Bo Hardrick. Don't be surprised if that ends up just kind of happening. So I do got to give him credit. He definitely deserves a lot of credit. Aiden is the future for now. Chef, shout out to you, Chef. Aiden is the future for now. We see what he is, and he improves. In my honest opinion, those calling for a rookie next year are being impatient and impulsive. That's the thing, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think the Raiders. I've stated this, and I'll continue stating it. The Raiders need a rookie quarterback, but what's going to happen is if we do get a rookie quarterback, we're going to be in the same place as where we're at kind of right now, right? We'll have a rookie quarterback next season. We'll win like 4 games, 5 games, and we'll have all these up and downs throughout the course of the season, and it's going to be a wasted season. Now, if we go forward with Aiden O'Connell, there's a chance that O'Connell could possibly develop into something. We could possibly get into the playoffs. I think the Raiders have a good team, right? We just got to fine-tune a couple of pieces. Maybe we give Aiden O'Connell an opportunity, right? I don't know. And I think that's going to be the big thing for whoever our next general manager is. Will Aiden O'Connell be the quarterback or not? I think that's going to definitely be interesting. I see an interesting comment by Juan. He says, Sanjit, you think Peter's staring in the mirror and crying? I wouldn't be surprised, man. I definitely would not be surprised if Marcus Peters is kicking himself right now. I love the fact that Antonio Pierce, there was a rumor out there that Antonio Pierce talked to Marcus Peters and told him that we may cut you like 2 weeks before he actually got cut. And I guess it was because of his effort on the field. And I'm not sure if it's the effort part of it, if it's like, he's bad character person or whatever it is. But I'm glad that AP cut his ass because, if you're not going to show up and play with that effort that, let's be honest, like Davante Adams is in the later stage of his career and he's here with the Raiders and he's dancing on the sideline today after putting up all these points and he's excited. That's the type of mindset you want in your guys. Davante Adams towards the end of his career, he has probably like 3 or 4 years left, right? Unless, maybe he plays longer than that, but he has like three good years left. And one of those good years was used this past season, right? And he had a rookie quarterback and Jimmy G and a mixture of the two and Brian Hoyer. And if we get a rookie quarterback next year, Davante Adams is still going to be here, right? And the type of character that Davante Adams has is so much different than the type of person Marcus Peters was. And to me, that type of stuff matters. And, Max Crosby, such a great person. Years back, some of you guys know this, if you guys have been watching my channel for about like 3-4 years. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had Max Crosby on. And, for him to come onto a show that had like 15,000 subscribers at that time and do a full-ass podcast and talk about life and those type of things, that's just the type of person Max Crosby is, and I'm so glad that the Raiders have him as the character of person he is, as well as the type of football player he is, one of the best players in the NFL. The Raiders got lucky with that pick, man. So shout out to Max, shout out to Davante for being pros. There's guys that, didn't want to be pros and they're not here anymore, right? So I'm glad the Raiders are kind of, holding themselves to a higher standard.
Homer, shout out to you. Great stuff, Sanjit. Just win, baby. Appreciate the comment. Kurt Hardy said, need to sign Christian Wilkins this offseason. Coons, Wilkins, Wilson, max on passing downs can be scary. That'd be interesting. I don't know if Christian Wilkins will 100% be available. That could definitely be interesting. I'm not going to lie to you. That would definitely be interesting if we were somehow able to get Christian Wilkins. One of the better defensive tackles for sure. I know the Dolphins may have some salary cap issues, but that'd be insane. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. That'd be a very, very interesting thing for sure. I think we just gotta fine tune the defensive line. It's going to be a big part of the Raiders having success. Shay said, "I really don't like how inconsistent Pierce is that the O had to go through Jacobs, or insistent. Today without Jacobs, they aired it out and look thoughts." That's a good point. That's definitely a good point, and I think it's one of the reasons why. Although I've stated that I was wrong by saying that the Raiders should have gotten rid of Josh Jacobs. I said in the offseason the Raiders should get rid of Josh Jacobs. Weeks like 1 and 2, in watching Zamir White in preseason, I said, hey, we need to re-sign Josh Jacobs, or at least bring him back for the year. But I think one of the arguments for getting rid of Josh Jacobs is that you don't have to give Josh Jacobs the ball 22 times in a game, right? You don't have to run the ball so much. I think we're in a passing league. I think that's actually true, that you should want to pass the ball. And your run game should be based off of your pass game, all right? So your running back should be guys that don't need to touch the ball all that much, right? They need to just average, 5.5 yards per attempt, not 3.8, not 3.9, and you're giving them 15 carries or 20 carries. Just got to have the ability to hit big plays. And I think that's why a running back by committee approach for the Raiders makes sense. But we got to get better running backs. Like, I know Brandon Bolden had the 26-yard run in the Wildcat formation. Shout out to him for that touchdown. But I don't think Brandon Bolden is the type of running back you want long-term as like a true running back. If he's a special teams player, great, but not as a true running back. I don't believe Zamir White's one of those guys either. Although I think Zamir White could be like a number 2 in a 1-2 punch. We got to go out and get a guy that could, carry the load for the Raiders. And he's on a rookie contract. He's not going to cost us a bunch of money. And we can air the ball out. I agree with that. We got to become a passing team, in my opinion, to have success. Mandingo, shout out to you, said, despite what happens and how we are trending at the time, just the time, do you think a first-round draft pick was wasted on Henry Ruggs? That's an interesting question, because on one end, I did not want Henry Ruggs. If you guys followed me back then, I was very, very disappointed. I said Henry Ruggs was the one guy I did not want. The whole incident that happened, no one could have predicted that. He could have obviously turned into a really, really good wide receiver. But would he have been as good as what we're seeing CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson be today? I don't think so. I think CeeDee Lamb would have been the right pick in terms of talent. Even Jerry Jeudy, you can make the argument between Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. But was it a wasted pick? I don't know, right? I really don't know, because you can't predict kind of what happened, right? What happened at the time. But I don't know, right? I still think the Raiders should have taken CeeDee Lamb. That was the guy that I wanted. It is what it is. I think the Raiders, as we move forward, we just got to get it right. Right? Picks from 5 years ago. At this point, it don't matter, right? There's a lot of guys that did not pan out. And at this point, the Raiders just need to make sure they get it right as they go forward. Shout out to you, Mike, for leaving the $5 super chat. I don't see a comment from you. If you had a comment, just drop it down below, and if I see it, we'll answer whatever question you have. I see some people saying Ruggs would have been a star. We don't know 100% sure if Ruggs would have been a star. I know some people look at his stats and say, hey, he was potentially on his way to having success or whatever. But are we 100% sure that, long term he would have continued to have success? Or maybe he just had like a couple of really, really good games, right? We don't know, right? We really don't know. I think it's hard to predict what Ruggs would have been in the long run. Would he have developed as, a true wide receiver that could really separate? I don't know, right? I really don't know. So either way, man, I'm excited for the Raiders. I think as we kind of go forward, I will say this in all my videos as the videos kind of come to an end. I always say that I think the Raiders aren't that far off. you draft yourself a right tackle of the future, or at least figure out who that's going to be. And you need a guy that can really anchor down, right? You get your right tackle of the future, you get your quarterback, and you get your offensive coordinator, and that's probably all you need to add to this offense, right? This offense is very, very talented. Michael Mayer is going to be a superstar. I was wrong on Michael Mayer. I said it's going to take this guy like 3 years to develop. The guy's going to be good. You can already see it right away. He doesn't get the targets, and I think that's a part of why he doesn't. And he's not going for 10 catches, 130 yards. Plus, he's like the number 3 guy at best in the offense from the receivers. But when, in 4 years, when Devontae Adams is no longer with the Raiders and Michael Mayer is the focal point of the offense, he's going to be putting up 100 yards every other game, right? He's going to be good. And you can just go down the list. I think Trey Tucker has upside. 3 catches today, 2 touchdowns. He's also had some drop passes that we've kind of seen, right? I think the Raiders are in a good spot. Just got to figure out the quarterback, got to figure out the offensive coordinator, and then just keep building, right? Keep building. No wasted picks. That's the big thing. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Appreciate you guys as always. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. We're going to have a film breakdown coming tomorrow. Let me know what you guys want to watch in the comments below. Let me know, and we'll definitely get into that. Have a great night, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.